The 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush seemed like it would never end. Gore won the popular vote, but neither candidate could claim victory in the Electoral College until it was determined who rightfully won the close race in Florida. Simply put, whoever won the state's 25 disputed electoral votes would win the presidency. What followed was a circus of recounts and court cases. The affair was settled more than a month after Election Day with a seemingly partisan 5-4 Supreme Court decision that halted the recounts and handed the election to Bush. For the son of the 41st president, it was time to unify the country.
I think the expectation, at least in the press, was that because Bush had won so narrowly, he would be a fairly moderate figure. People like me who guessed wrong.
Number 43, George W. Bush, Republican, first elected in 2000, 53 years old, from Texas. When he was elected, George W. Bush joined John Quincy Adams as the only presidential son to win the White House. The younger George Bush was more conservative than his father, but shared some similarities in his worldview.
Both Bushes see the world in good guy, bad guy mentality. Both Bushes see Saddam Hussein as evil. Both Bushes see the forces of the United States as the good force. And both Bushes have taken policy steps to ensure that good would triumph over evil. It's a part of their makeup.
George W. Bush was a former prep school cheerleader who embraced the cowboy ethic of his Texas home. As a leader, he sometimes came across as the national sheriff.
And so long as I'm the president of this country, we're going to chase them down one by one to make sure the American homeland is secure.
A graduate of Yale and Harvard Business School and the former governor of Texas, Bush nevertheless portrayed himself as an outsider who disdained the elites. His inarticulate speaking style led many to question his intelligence.
A report came out of the IAEA that they were 6 months away from developing a weapon.
His intelligence is an emotional intelligence. He can look at people, he can size them up pretty quickly, he can get to the heart of what they're like, and tend to know how to judge them. That's a pretty useful attribute in a politician and a useful one in the president. It would be nice if it were combined with some depth of reflection and some nuance and some curiosity, and intellectual curiosity and rigor about the issues.
Despite his lack of curiosity for the details, Bush is one of the most decisive presidents in history, and he runs a tight ship.
In the Clinton White House, everything ran late, including the president. In the Bush White House, everything is on time, and it's considered to be rude and unacceptable if you're late for a meeting. You come dressed in your suit, you make it brief, you salute the commander-in-chief, and then you go. It's a very rigorous, orderly process.
Bush may very well have enjoyed a leisurely presidency if not for the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended.
This president's had 2 inaugurations. I mean, he had a formal constitutional inauguration, and then 3 days after September 11th, he had his real inauguration.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon. Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
What Bush was really code wording to the American people is revenge. We're going to get who did this to us.
With the overwhelming support of the American public, Bush launched a military campaign that rid Afghanistan of the terrorist-harboring Taliban government. At the same time, he centralized domestic security under a new federal bureaucracy, the Department of Homeland Security.
He came to Washington, sworn to making government less central to our lives. And yet, because of events that no one could have foreseen, he has presided over, arguably, the greatest centralization of authority in Washington, perhaps since Lyndon Johnson.
In his 2002 State of the Union address, Bush seemed to widen the scope of his war on terror to include regimes in North Korea, Iran, and Iraq.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
We know now that this expression, the axis of evil, grew partly as cover. Bush wanted to signal that he wanted to go after Iraq, but he didn't want to be too obvious about it.
After a failed attempt to win international support for overthrowing Saddam Hussein, Bush used his new doctrine of preemption to launch a unilateral war in Iraq.
I think Bush made the decision to invade Iraq far too early. He tried to tie it in with the global spread of terrorism, and the ties were very tenuous. He had a group of advisors around him and certain things in his own mind and heart that said that Iraq was the next place we had to fight.
In 2004, George W. Bush avoided the fate of his father when he was re-elected to a second term. It's still too soon for historians to assess his presidency.
We do know this, though, that it is an important presidency. And that's more than we know about many presidencies.